Welcome to our monthly Charter School Investor podcast, What Charter School Leadership Looks Like. Each month, we meet with leaders in the charter school sector to better understand how they land the plane while it's still being built. Our guest today, Dr. Jacqueline Elliot, President and CEO of Puck National, and the co-founder of Partnerships to Uplift Communities, a 14-school charter management organization in Los Angeles known as Puck Schools. She's the author of Passionate Warrior, My Charter School Journey, which details Dr. Elliott's journey as a spirited activist in social justice who battles reform and reforms really the public education system from within. Before we start, I wanted to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Herbert J. Sims. From single-site charter schools to CMOs, from expansions to startups, Herbert J. Sims delivers innovative and flexible capital solutions that meet their clients' evolving needs through their financed right approach. Dr. Elliott, so let's start with, if we could, with your journey. And I recall when I was reading Passionate Warrior, you mentioned that you started your public education journey teaching at a largely Latino elementary public school in Los Angeles. Is that right?
That is correct. In Los Angeles, but part of the Northeast San Fernando Valley. It was Pacoima Elementary School. Pacoima is a very challenged socioeconomic area, particularly in 1986 when I started teaching. I was a second career person. I came from public health. I knew how to speak Spanish in family planning field, put your gown on for the doctor, etc. But I did not know how to say, open your book, or we're going to do math today. I had 32 students in my first grade class in 1986. All but one spoke only Spanish. One student spoke English, and I spoke English. It was a high poverty area. There were a lot of things that were not good about that school. 1,760 students, a lot of students in need, a lot of burned out teachers. It was very, very challenging, but I was very passionate about the work, and I connected with my students, and they learned English and I learned more Spanish, and they learned how to read in that first grade class.
Interesting. Well, unless I missed it, even before then, did you, let's see, were you born in Great Britain?
I was born in Glasgow, Scotland. Yes, and I emigrated when I was 13 years old with my family to Los Angeles.
Oh, and was there anybody in your family who had either been in, public health or public education, or sort of been in service, if you will?
Yes, my mother was an RN, became an RN from an Orthodox Jewish family in Scotland, the only girl in the family, and wanted to go to nursing college. And this was many, many decades ago. And some of my earliest memories of my mom are her coming home from the hospital in the morning from the night shift in the pediatric unit. But also she was a pioneer in family planning also, and ran clinics and did research after we emigrated to the United States. So service was definitely in my family, and it was in my heart, and I'd had an exemplary role model in that regard.
Yeah, so from Scotland, you say, to Los Angeles.
Scotland to Los Angeles, and in fact, as my students learned English in that first grade class and in subsequent years later, they would come back to visit me. And sometimes I'd notice just a little hint of a Scottish accent in what they were saying.
Oh, so we know where that came from.
Yes,
Wow.
exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting when you have, I think we all face that sort of when when you have a family and they do certain things, and then you're setting out to do what you're doing. And again, we do it sort of differently, and that's sort of part of not who you are, but your background. And then you go forward, and it sounds like you started in public health, but then public education quickly became your calling. And And what prompted you from teaching first grade, and you did that, to at one point, maybe, sometime in the next decade, thinking that, you're going to get involved in the charter school movement? And what did that look like when you started?
Well, when I was at Pacoima Elementary School, I knew there was a 50% dropout rate at the local high school. And I would look at my students and think, how can this be that 50% of them are destined to drop out? This can't be the case. And it was a very, very low performing school, and the classrooms were too crowded. There was bilingual education. I was a bilingual teacher, even with my limited Spanish, and we managed it. But bilingual education was terrific, but you needed teachers who spoke, fluent Spanish. That was just one of the things that was not right. And I'm a proponent of bilingual education with the correct staff. But the children were so needy and their needs were not being met, and teachers were burned out. The challenges were so great that I knew that school reform was needed in the Northeast San Fernando Valley. I did not want 50% of my children to be dropping out when they went to that local high school. So that is really what prompted me to be committed to school reform. After I'd been at Pacoima Elementary School for a few years, I moved to another elementary school in Pacoima. Montague was the name of that school. And they were engaged in school reform. They had a grant from the state of California to do a restructuring, and teachers had more say in what went on. They had a different focus on learning, teaching and learning. They were very innovative, and I very much enjoyed my time there. But LAUSD was the district that we were in, and they wanted Montague to move into a different kind of school-based management model. And we were already on a wonderful path that was based on Deming's total quality management with autonomy in each team.
Oh, sure. I remember that. Yeah.
And that was working very well. And I was desperate to keep us on the same path. And I found out about the charter movement because there were two large conversion charter schools in Pacoima at that time, very, very well known. This was very early in the movement. It was 1994, I suppose, that I became aware of LAUSD trying to change things. And I knew that if we were a charter school, we could have autonomy and we could continue on the same trajectory that was having such a profound impact on the students. And so I got in touch with Vaughan Next Century Learning Center in Fenton, and they came to the school and they talked to us. And sure enough, we converted Montague to charter status, and it became what is known as a conversion charter school, and we were able to stay on our own school reform path. However, my heart was still with the elementary school students at Pacoima and the many schools that were not doing well, and I was still committed to school reform in a greater way. And so I knew that developmentally middle school was such a critical time for students. They could either become what would become a ninth grade dropout because they would turn off in middle school, or they could become excited about teaching, about learning, and set a goal to go to college. And so my friends kept telling me, you can start your own charter school, but nobody had ever done that in the San Fernando Valley.
Right. This was in what year was this? Was this
1998 was when I decided
98? That's right.
Mm-hmm. And LAUSD had only ever authorized one other startup, a small elementary school. And I decided that I wanted to start a charter middle school. And I got a grant for $35,000 from the Department of Education. And that was it. I thought about it a long time. I just knew instinctively if I got that grant and I started that school, my life would never be the same again. And I knew it was a huge undertaking, but I just knew in my gut I had to do something to make a change for these children in Pacoima, the ones that were dropping out from high school. And that was my step into the charter world.
Interesting. Well, I recall in Passionate Warrior, your book, I thought I remember one part where I don't know if I thought you were trying to get space at a community college or somewhere near, and it wasn't quite ready. And so I remembered, anyway, one year you opened school. It sounded like in a park, under trees with 100 students. And I don't know how you got their parents to agree to that.
That is true. It was the when I started community charter middle school, that first school in 1999, we were in a very small facility, and I could only hold one grade level at a time in that facility. So I had started with 100 sixth graders, then they became 100 seventh graders, and then I realized we have to have a greater impact. And already the community had been asking for, more schools like this, and I had a huge waiting list. So I decided I would expand and get a second facility. So I found a pretty good, I found a residential lot, got a zoning exemption, and had bungalows that were going to be placed on this lot, which in itself was an adventure and another story. But it was not ready on time. And I had already recruited 100 sixth graders to fill that original site. We had the original students in 8th grade that were going to be moving into the new facility, and 100 new sixth graders that were going to be starting in the new facility. And so I had 200 students that were actually homeless when it was time to start school. I delayed the calendar until we were going to run out of school days. I tried to find a place to put the 200 students. I couldn't. And I thought, wait, we are a public school. Public. What else is public? A park. That is public. And there was a park in the community. There was a giant field. It wasn't a very big park, but there was a little baseball diamond, and there were a few trees. And I told the parents, called them together, and I said, we're not going to be able to start unless we start right away. This is the only place I have. They said, we trust you. We trust your teachers. We will deliver them to the park. And so they delivered them to the park, 200 students. And the teachers all dressed up. The male teachers were in ties and jackets. Everything was very formal. And one class, the social studies class, was under a clump of trees in one corner. The English language arts class was in another part of the park, and math class was somewhere else, and so forth and so on. And I had all these teachers in different corners, and I had a bell, and we went by our schedule. Everything was good until about the 3rd day. Then the city of San Fernando came and said, you can't have a school here. And I argued and said, yeah, we can. We're a public school. They came back the next day. I said, let's just keep going. And they told us again, you can't have a school here. We had a little bit of an argument, and I thought, I have to get them out of here. And so I rented buses, and we took them all over Los Angeles on educational field trips. They went to Olvera Street. They went to the Science Museum. They went to the Museum of Natural History. They went to the IMAX Theater and saw an amazing feature. And they went to the beach. These children learned so much about the city of Los Angeles in that second week. And then, thank heavens, our facility was ready. But you know what, Alan? When you got to start, you got to start. And where there's a will, there's a way. And there was such an element of trust among the staff and the families, which goes to the culture that we create. They said, if that's what we have to do, then that's what we'll do. That's what we want.
Yeah, very interesting you say that, because I wonder about that, because you really need them to believe in the mission and the vision and all that. Right now, it looks like a bunch of trees and they're riding around on a bus, but yet, and this is something you've always done throughout your career. You get buy-in, from your team, and you create a unique culture. And it sounds like for the parents to sign up and say, oh, sure, yeah, going on buses sounds like, yeah, we're with Dr. Elliott. That's incredible. So how did you sort of, how does one create a culture? Because it's nice to hear it's not a straight line path the way you set it up in 1998 or 99 without, any turns along the way. It sounds like there were plenty, but you just keep your eye on the horizon there. And how do you create that culture?
Well, the vision is that everybody is united in a clear vision of success for every student, and the school belongs to all the stakeholders, which technically it does. These are public schools, our taxes pay for them. So it has to be a culture of inclusion where parents are truly partners, where there's regular monthly family meetings where parents come and there's transparency, where there's an open door policy that the principal has. You have to select teachers that truly believe every child can and will succeed, and have a passion to get that child to where he needs to be. Assess the child's needs, give him what he needs, reassess, because in the areas that we serve in PUC schools, they are traditionally have been low socioeconomic areas with schools that were underserved, schools that were underperforming. So when a child comes into sixth grade reading at third grade level, it has to be a teacher that is very strategic and very smart about how to move that child's reading skills as fast as they can. And then a unity among the staff, a lot of collaboration among the staff, a lot of networking, learning from one another, a family. That community charter middle school, especially that first school, still has that culture. They have very low, almost no teacher turnover rate. They have a waiting list of over 100 students every year. The teachers love it there. The principal leads with passion and with heart. And it's about looking at children holistically. If a child has a toothache, that's a barrier to learning. So it's about the school finding that child a place where they can get free dental care. If they don't have any dental coverage, they don't have money for dental. So it's a very holistic approach, and definitely a passion and a belief every child must succeed, and everybody united in that effort. The parents have the children after they leave school. The parents need to know how the child is doing in school, what they can do to help, encourage the child to do their homework, and let the teachers know when the child is struggling. The teachers have to be open to listening. Those are just a few of the things.
Yeah, it's when you say that, I think I recall you told me that in terms of, not only building that culture, it sounds to me a little bit like you were all over social emotional learning and teaching the whole child even before it became, a thing, maybe because of your history and your orientation, from your mom, you're just tuned into things like that as well, and realized that that might not be the sole function of school, but it can get in the way of what public education looks like if students can't show up ready to learn.
That is correct. I mean, it's just common sense. If you want a child to be academically successful, but there's a barrier, you have to address the barrier. And I know we had talked about schools changing over the decades, 25 years since I founded community charter middle school. And I think the greater educational community, the traditional public schools, have now understand, a lot of them understand a more holistic approach will lead you to the goal that you're trying to achieve with student, success. And yes, and recognizing that the children and the staff also, they are not just intellectual beings. They have feelings, they have emotions. And, you also, another thing we'll mention, that over the 25 years, when I started community charter middle school, there were challenges, but social media did not exist. Children glued to screens all the time so that they don't know how to relate socially as well as they used to be able to do, because they're spending so much time communicating through a screen. That has changed the way children come to us, and social emotional learning is even more important than it was before.
Yeah, and that's one piece, I think, of how even perhaps the role of public education has evolved over the last couple of decades. On one talk we had with a leader, they said that parents have perhaps a newfound appreciation for teachers and the like, because they just spent a couple of years trying to support their students at home, and they sort of are now quite thrilled that students are back in school and the teachers are doing what they're doing. But it sounds like there are new challenges, and I guess part of this is adapting your culture to accommodate it.
Absolutely. One of the other things we have, I think, as we've discussed, is over 50 mental health MFT interns, marriage and family therapy interns, working in our network. And the way we're able to afford that is they don't get paid. They're doing their clinical hours. So we have a staff of about 6 that supervise them, mentor them, oversee them, give them professional development. But that's the way we have been able to have an adequate number of mental health counselors for our students and families if they need it. Because particularly, as you mentioned, during COVID, when there was distance learning, we all know everybody's mental health was challenged, and they came back to us with a lot of needs. However, I hired my first mental health counselor in 1999 when I opened community charter middle school, because, as you were saying, I always had that view and that vision and that understanding that you have to be holistic and you have to address barriers. to learning, and mental health was definitely one of them.
Well, let me just taking a quick break. School Improvement Partnership, again, wants to thank our sponsor, Herbert J. Sims, from single site charter schools to CMOs, from expansions to startups. Herbert J. Sims delivers innovative and flexible capital solutions that meet their clients' evolving needs through their financed right approach. Now, as you were saying that, Dr. Elliott, about your mental health coaches and sort of creating the culture, I also recall that you have a fair number of alumni who actually are part of your schools now.
Yes, we do. Our third commitment, the third commitment in Puck schools is students will commit to uplift their communities now and forever. And many of our students feel that one way to uplift the community is do the work within Puck, because they know that Puck was created to uplift the community, partnerships to uplift communities. So we have over 100 in a variety of roles. We have teaching assistants, campus aides. We've had alumni that are office managers, office clerks, inclusion assistants, and we have a number of them who are teachers now in our network. And a large number of the ones who are teachers came through our Alumni Teach project that we created ourselves through a partnership with Loyola Marymount University. They learned to teach on our campus with master teachers in classrooms while completing their credential program at Loyola Marymount University. And we have a pretty large number of them now teaching in our classrooms. And we hope that one of them will eventually become one of our school principals. More than one, hopefully.
That's just beautiful. It's so, I find that a lot of the things that, you either thought about in 1999 or you've executed now are important elements that a lot of charter schools and CMOs, maybe they've incorporated, but they're starting to nevertheless. Among them that you talked about, community partnerships, which I guess is at the heart of the starting of your school. I think that people don't quite realize, actually, just even economically, the engine that charter schools provide for those communities. I recall we, at School Improvement Partnership, we do the reporting on your financings. And I recall when COVID hit, everybody was asking, what's happening at all the charter schools? All the schools are closing. What's going on? And I recall that you updated us just talking about community to say not only were all your kids getting iPads, they were getting hotspots.
Correct.
And you were delivering over 1 million meals in the community.
Yes, we were. And we were not only delivering meals to our students, we have a wonderful Puck Nationals director of the nutrition program who works with the schools. Found out about a program where we could feed actually other children in the community who were not part of our schools. And so, and we spread the word in the communities that we serve. And sure enough, we had a lot of parents bringing children to pick up food that were not part of our schools. And it was well over 1 million meals that were served. And the way that we did it was we delivered, they came to the schools to pick up the meals. They got 5 days of meals at one time, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack. And they would get a big package and they'd take it home. And then once a week, they would come back and get 15 meals plus snacks. And we served the greater community through that program that Rosa found out about. Yes, I mean, because look, in the words are partnerships to uplift communities. So whatever we can do to uplift the community, that's what we're going to do, even if it goes beyond our own students. And there was a case where indeed it did go beyond our own students.
Absolutely, will it clearly. Another piece that you and I have thought a little bit about in our, as we talked a little bit before and over the last 6 years that we've worked together, is planning for the future. When is the time for a founder to start planning for the future?
Well, Easier said than done, because when a founder starts a school, they are so immersed in the present and thinking about getting everything done. And I think there is a certain sense of having been a founder and still a founder, you have kind of a sense of you'll go on forever and you'll always be there, but none of us are on this earth, at least in this body, more than once. And we all
And no
move on.
one will do it like the founder, right? I
Well,
mean, no one's lived through all those lessons, has, all that background in healthcare, in the community to pick up that flag. So there's probably some other great leaders, but there's not another Dr. Jackie Elliott.
Exactly. So to answer your question, I say as soon as possible. You always have to be thinking forward. You always have to be. And I think with my approach, we have always been building from within and continue to do so. And likewise so I am co-founder of the schools, no longer CEO of the schools, but co-founder and CEO of Puck National, all the services that support the schools. But the current CEO of the schools has been with the schools since 2005 and began as a special education teacher, then became a principal, then became a regional director, and has grown up through the ranks. And for Puck National, I have a deputy CEO who also has been with me since 2005. Puck National wasn't started till 2013, but she grew with us through the schools and then into Puck National. So I think, no, nobody does it like the founder. And I think in our last conversation, I was saying, you can't expect they will be identical to you, who the leadership is going to be, but it's the most important values and the foundational pillars have to be solid in them. And their leadership has to be good enough that it will help move the organization and the schools forward, and they will be able to ensure sustainability at least during the time that they're in their position.
As you're saying that, it reminds me of, you're probably too young to remember, but you remember the Ed Sullivan Show used to be on, Sundays?
Uh, I remember it. I'm not too young. I remember it.
Okay. And he used to have on this guy who was I know, he had like 5 sticks and he was spinning plates on top of the sticks and keeping them all balanced at the same time. And then one dish would start to wobble, so he'd run and he'd spin that one around. And then, of course, on the other end, the other one would start to wobble. So he'd run and do that. So is that a little bit, like being the co-founder as the next level of leadership comes in?
Oh my goodness, that is such a good description. That's a wonderful metaphor. Absolutely. And that's the role of a principal, also the role of a CEO, definitely spinning plates, and you just can't let any of them drop. And another way that I describe it, I talk frequently to the CEO of Puck Schools, who used to be my employee, of course, when she was a principal. And I tell her, you have to fly at a certain level. And you have to have your eye on everything. To have your eye on everything, you can't be down in the weeds in one initiative. You have to be flying above all of it. And when you see a fire start, you got to swoop down with your fire hose and put out that fire. You have to have your eyes everywhere. You have to be high enough at a certain level to see everything. And you have to get down into the weeds where you see your time, where you are needed. I kind of, think of that when you're talking about the place too, but most definitely it's like triaging, all the time, triaging, not letting a plate drop and crash.
Sure. Well, to quote one of my favorite authors, Abraham Verghese, he wrote a couple of books, including Cutting for Stone. Beautiful book. I'm just finishing it now. And he has a passage in there where he says, you live life forward, but understand it backward. What is it that you understand now that you wished you knew sooner?
Oh my goodness, Alan. Right away, what comes to mind is I would not have just started a middle school. I started a middle school, as I said, because I believed that was the most critical time in a child's development. But what happened very quickly was parents said, this culture is so amazing. My child has done so well. I don't want to go to the local high school. I want my child to move up into 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th in this same culture. And likewise for children on the other end, parents started to say, why don't you start an elementary school? So the development of Puck Schools was kind of like a little bit of a hodgepodge. Parents wanted a high school in the valley, they got a high school. Parents wanted a high school in Northeast LA, they got a high school. A couple of classes fell through the cracks because there wasn't a high school right away for the first graduating class. So I would have started K through 12. Started with maybe 3 grade levels, kindergarten, first and second, and then grown them up because our vision was we were so successful in that first school. We had a waiting list within weeks after we opened the doors. And I would have done only K through 12 configurations for the schools. So that's one thing. And then another thing, I follow my gut. Definitely, I'm really good at that. I always follow my gut. But sometimes if there's a little niggling, like, well, is this really what my gut is telling me? Pause. Don't have a knee-jerk response to a situation. If you have the time to pause and think about it, even for an hour or two, pause. Don't jump into things without thinking it through as much as you need to. Not to procrastinate. You can't do that, but always be sure before you.
Yeah, I guess one of the reasons I'm so curious about leadership is because I'm continuing to explore and learn that myself. And somebody told me sometime in the last week or so, in line with what you just said, it's also about keeping your emotions in check. And if something triggers you or gets you upset, you can write that email that reacts, but don't send it.
Exactly. That's exactly what I do. I think it was in our conversation we were
Oh,
talking.
it was. That's where I know I learned it from somebody. So
Yes.
my team is very happy that they haven't gotten any snippy emails all week, and now they know why.
Yeah, emails are tough. They get interpreted on the other end. And if you are feeling heated, that email can have some subtleties in there and you don't get it out. Write it, get it out, get it off your chest, then pause, walk away from it, and come back a few hours later. And chances are you'll soften it a bit, or you'll delete a little and you'll make it more palatable. So yes.
Well, Dr. Elliott, thank you for being so generous with your time and your insights. One more, thank you to our sponsor, Herbert J. Sims. This is what charter school leadership looks like. Thank you.
Thank you.